creeps, Andy here, and today I wanted to talk about the movie The Ring. Do you guys know, my dog always makes some grumpiest noises, do you guys know what the original story for The Ring was? Because if you don't, do I have the video for you? So today I'm going to be talking about the movie Ring, the American version of The Ring, and I'm going to be comparing it to both the 1998 Japanese movie Ringu, which is where it was derived, and then also this book, Rings, by Koji Suzuki, that was published in 1991. Oh, it was originally published as Ringu. It was originally published in English as Ring, and then it was republished as Rings, which I think, from just my assumption, that it was kind of like a marketing ploy when the movie Rings came out to try to get people to buy the book. I don't know. But anyways, so I'm going to be talking about all of them today. I have to tell you, this is one of the strangest books I have ever read. Just wait until you hear the actual story behind The Ring. It's all fictional, it's not real, but what's written in here is wild. I'm gonna be obviously giving away plot points, and I'm basically giving away the whole book. So if you care about that, skip this video. But if you don't, please stick around because I'm about to blow your mind. I'm gonna blow it because this is such a wild book. I read it and at the end I was like, what did I just read? It's a very odd story. So anyways, let's just jump into it because I have a lot to say. I'm going to talk about the movie, the American movie The Ring first, just because I feel like that's what most people probably are familiar with. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about mostly similarities, and then the differences, I mean, are just everything. Like, the book is so different and so strange. And then I'm going to be talking about silly things in each that happens, and there's a lot to go over. I'll leave timestamps down below in case you guys want to just skip over to the book. You don't want to hear about the similarities and differences, you just want to hear about how strange the book is. And then at the very, very end, I'm going to show you the Ring video, you watch it and then you have 7 days to live. I will show you the American version, then the Japanese version, and then I'm also going to read you or summarize what's described in the book as well, because I found that really interesting and I thought maybe some of you would too. But anyways, let's just get started because there's a lot going on here. Okay, The Ring, the 2002 American version, the movie that we all know and probably enjoyed somewhat growing up. They're all basically the same story. There is an individual, they watch this video, they somehow figure out that they have 7 days to do something or they'll die. Even that is a little bit different throughout, but I mean, that's like the basic consensus, right? There's a video you watch, it'll kill you in 7 days. So that is kind of the only thing that's the same throughout. The book and the American version are very different. I would say there's the book and then a step up from that, not like better or worse or anything. I just mean, like, here's the book, here's the American version, and then the Japanese version is kind of like an in-between of both, or a mixture of both. That one came first, but you get what I'm saying? Like the Japanese version has a lot more of the book and then a mixture of its own thing, and then the American version is like part of that Japanese version and then a mixture of its own thing as well. The similarities, they both are reporters, and their nieces have died because they've watched this video, which is how they get involved in the case in the first place. They find the tape the same way in the cabin which their nieces had stayed in prior with their friends. They watch the video themselves, and then they find that they only have 7 days to figure out what's going on. That is the same. However, just like the Japanese movie, The Ring features a female protagonist versus the book, which is a male protagonist. Things are complicated by loved ones seeing the movie as well, so it's not just a fight for their lives, it's a fight for their loved ones' lives. And again, this is their children in both cases that watch the movie. Hold on, my dog's trying to get out. Another similarity is that the antagonist, the evil girl, which we'll touch on in a second, Samara in the American version, can burn images into this almost, I don't know exactly what kind of paper it is, but it looks like almost X-ray paper, not paper, but you know what I'm saying? She can burn images into that with her mind. And this is a little bit overlooked, I think, in the movie. It's kind of mentioned when the doctor is interviewing Samara, where he's holding up these pictures and saying, like, I don't know, did you do this or something? But this is kind of the explanation of how, a little bit of the explanation of how she was able to imprint this evil on a videotape in the book. So that, I guess, is a little bit of a difference too, but they both come down to the same general concept that I think is just a little bit overlooked in the movie. They have the same endings. Oh, and then a similarity between the American version and the book, which I think might be the only similarity between these two that the Japanese version doesn't have, is I don't necessarily know that Samara is the villain. Like, I know she is supposedly evil and she does a lot of horrible things, but in the book, she's definitely not the villain. She had a pretty rough go at things, and then, you know, she imprinted her evil on this tape, whatever. Samara in the movie is a little bit more evil in that, like, her parents were scared of her and tried to keep her in a facility and things like that. But even in that interview with the doctor, she even says, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to do it." And so I don't necessarily know if she is a villain. Now watching the movie as an adult, I'm not on her side. I'm not like, kill all those people, Samara. But I don't think that she is a villain in the same way that she is, say, in the Japanese version. There's my dog barking. Those are just, you know, a bit of the similarities. I would say a big difference is that the 7 days, you do get a call, but it's not a creepy voice that goes 7 days. It's a little different. We'll talk about that in the book thing, as well as a bunch of other differences too, but I'm gonna get through Ringu first and then we'll focus on the book. But one thing that's absolutely silly in the American version, which I didn't even realize until I watched it this time, was there's a cabin that's built over, you know, the well, right? And it's tall enough for the people to stand under it, meaning that it's a giant crawl space, meaning that there's probably some sort of door or entryway that you could get into this crawl space under. And in the American version, sorry, my dog was barking, but in the go lay down. Okay, so there's this giant crawl space, which is obviously, you know, large enough to stand under, and instead of finding a way under it, the Americans are like, let's just destroy the floor, and they take like friggin' axes and destroy the floor. I thought that that was really funny because that does not happen in Ringu, the movie. I don't think it happens in the book either. No, I think they find like a crawl space to walk into. So not sure why the Americans are so destructive, but that is a silly little thing that does happen in that movie. Okay, so now let's go to Ringu, the 1998 Japanese movie that was based on the book. Now, this one is a lot similar to the American version in some ways. For instance, that female protagonist that we were talking about. Some scenes are taken exactly, like I'm not joking, taken shot for shot from the Japanese version. And you'll see that a little bit in actually the Ring video as well. But for example, there's one scene in the beginning where after the girl had died, like the first girl that died in the beginning, after she dies, the little boy's standing at the base of the stairs, and then you see a girl run up. The protagonist asking friends at the wake, you know, if they knew any information, that's in there. Distorted faces and the photographs is in there, as well as there's this really odd scene where the man and who we come to find out is his son have like this really awkward moment where there's just a scene where they just stare at each other out in the rain, and it's like, it's kind of awkward, and I never felt like it really fit in the film, and that is taken exactly from the Ringu film, so I thought that that was kind of interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of differences too. So oh, this is a good one. Okay, so there's two reporters. There's one reporter that's helping our main reporter, and he's showing her a clip of, this is from the book, it's not in the American movie, but he's showing a report of other corpses who have died after supposedly watching this videotape, and he says, and I quote, "I've never seen a corpse that looked like that." So you're thinking, oh, this is gonna be bad, right? And this is what it is. There's a video of the police, like the crime scene. The police officers open the door, and there's a woman who has no makeup on. She's not bloated or disfigured or gross. She's just a normal, she looks alive. And she just goes and falls out of the car. And that's it. So basically what I'm saying here is that American horror movies are definitely to the extreme, definitely compared to this one. Americans go above and beyond, and the makeup is a lot more gross, those practical effects and all that kind of stuff. There's none of that in this film. So I just thought that that was really funny. And then they also, the reporters see visions that help them solve the videotape, which is kind of like a weird addition in the Japanese movie that's not in the book or the American version. They just kind of went their own way with that. Instead of the mom killing Samara, it's the dad, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it's her actual biological dad. There's also differences on how they get to the island and how they get back to the cabin. There's one quote in there that says, "Frolic in brine, goblins be thine." I don't know, I just thought that that was like an interesting, it sounds more like a witchy thing, but it's in there. Samara's name in the book and the movie are both Sadako, and in this one, she is a monster. She is creepy. Even when she's alive, she's creepy. So basically what happens is her mother has these abilities, which she's the one that passes them down to Samara, and her mother and this doctor are trying to prove that she has abilities. So they go in front of a bunch of reporters, and the reporters are like, "You're a liar, you're a phony, you suck." One of the reporters falls dead, and Samara's mom goes, "Is that you, Samara?" And I'm not joking. It's the best scene in the movie. Her hair's over her face like it is when she's dead, but she's alive here. And then she just creepily runs out of the room. It's so funny. And she is a villain. She is evil. She's a murderer even as a kid just because they called her mom a liar, you know? So I think that the argument for her being evil is justified in this one, but I don't know about the other two. The differences in the well scenes, they're pretty big as well. And there's a voice on the tape that sounds almost like creepy and demonic, which they replay while they're in the well. That scene's really creepy and fun. I really enjoyed that. It's also implied that her father isn't human, and that's why the doctor had to kill her. I put a question mark there because I think I was a little bit confused about that in the film, but that was what I got from it. Sorry, it's been a few weeks since I watched the movie, so I don't fully remember that. Another difference here, you know how her husband in the American version kind of helps her solve things from being back at home. In this version, he goes with her to the island and he helps her solve the things. So that's a little bit of a difference as well. Also in the well, the body is not decayed like it is in the American version. You see her eye and then she dies, and like maybe that has something to do with why, well, I guess it's called Ring because of that, but I think maybe they try to add more ring metaphor in there as well. So that's like the last thing that you see of her is her eyeball. Oh, there's also one more thing where in the videotape that you watch before it kills you, there's a man who points, you'll see it in a second, and that is actually her husband after he dies, pointing out what she did differently to survive than him. And so it doesn't make sense, but it's actually kind of a cool, creepy little fun thing that's put in there. But obviously it doesn't make sense because Sadako was the one that imprinted the images, so why would that happen? You know what I mean? Like, if you think about it too much, it all falls apart. But it is like a cool, fun, little creepy scene in there. There's also a quote in the Japanese version that says, "The video is Sadako's rage. She put a curse on us." So this is also different than the book too, which we're gonna get into the book in a second. And then the silly part of this movie I thought was so funny. So once they get into the well, it's filled maybe up to here with water. And so they, for like hours, are just taking buckets out of the well. You are going to die. It's time to go for a swim. Find that dead girl and get out of there. What are you doing? I just thought that that was the silliest thing. Let me see if there's anything else on my phone. Oh, the only other thing that I would want to say between the two movies was that it was cool to actually physically see the cultural differences between Japanese and American, even lifestyle in the movies. There's one scene where it pans over the newspaper, and instead of panning from left to right, it pans from right to left. And then the characters are also written in columns as well. It was just interesting to see that. I never really thought about how, like, which way Japanese write or read. It was also interesting to see what a Japanese wake looked like compared to the American wake. Oh, another thing that I found interesting too was that the kid was left alone at a really young age in the movie, and I googled it, and from my like 2 seconds of googling, I guess there's not a minimum age requirement in Japan for kids to be left alone, and it is more normal to leave young kids alone at home, which I thought was really interesting because I'm pretty sure there's some sort of age limit, at least in my state, of like when you can leave your kids alone. So I thought that that was interesting too. And another one was taking off your shoes before entering a house. I know that this is like a big debate, and I know even some Americans do take their shoes off before they enter the house, but it was interesting to see how dedicated they were to doing it. At one point when she finds out that her husband is going to die or has died or something, I think she thinks that he's gonna die, and so she's like running to his place, her ex-husband, running to his place, like, no, I can save him kind of thing. And then she runs into the house and she's like, oh, gotta take off my shoes first. And I just thought, like, that's some dedication to taking off your shoes before going into the house. Like, that's very respectful. So I don't know, I just thought that that was interesting to kind of see some cultural differences as well in the two movies. So now let's move on actually to the book. Buds, the book is weird. Things get weird. So I'm just gonna go down the list and tell you kind of like all of the strange things that happen in the book. Not even all. No, that's not true. Some of the strange things that happen in the book, and then we'll go and talk about the Ring videos as well. As we know, in the Japanese version of Ringu, the movie, the woman, Sadako's mother, is the one that passes down whatever trait that makes her evil, okay? In the book, the way that her mother has this ability is because she brings up a statue that the military has sunk into the water, and she looks it in the eyes and it gives her powers. In this one, she has a daughter with the doctor that's trying to prove that she is a psychic as well. And then people do think that she's a fake. So she gets upset, the mother, and jumps into a volcano. A little excessive, but all right. The doctor eventually goes to a sanitarium because he's sick in his old age. So Sadako's dad goes to a sanitarium because he's sick. There's another doctor at a sanitarium who got smallpox on accident by being exposed to a patient. So he was quarantined by himself. He saw Sadako outside, presumably visiting her father at the institution. He raped her, killed her, and threw her body in a well. This is not funny, but it's just, this is so freaking weird. So in the book, this is how the video of the ring came to be. Her rage combined with the smallpox virus fused and festered for years under the cabin that was built on top of it, and her rage imprinted on a tape that gave you 7 days to perform a task before you died. That was a lot, right? Okay, let me break it down for you, because I have a few things to read in here as well. This is where it explains what happened to form the tape. It says, a woman's resentment towards the masses, so towards the people that called her mother a liar, who had hounded her father and mother to their deaths, and the smallpox virus's resentment towards human ingenuity that had driven it to the brink of extinction, had fused together in the body of a singular person named Sadako Yamamura, and had reappeared in the world in an unexpected, unimaginable way. So in this sense, first of all, that's fucking weird and wild that that's even a statement in here. Like, how did she even get smallpox? Because there's a certain incubation period before you have the virus. So he rapes her, he kills her, and then he throws her in, and then smallpox virus fused with her evil to make an evil videotape. Like, what are you saying? But like, aside from the weirdness, I guess what my whole point of this is that it's more of a virus that's being spread than a curse in this particular instance. And then there's also one other thing that I wanted to read about this. Okay, so this is the like strong feelings of Sadako after being pushed down the well. And they matured down there in the cramped hole, breathing like the ebb and flow of the tide, waxing and waning in strength according to some cycle that had at some point coincided in the frequency with the television placed directly overhead, and they made their appearance in the world. So basically, the evil of Sadako plus this smallpox virus just were chilling in the well until the tides were right and the alignment was perfect and a cabin was perfectly placed above it and the television on the above it was able to take the images and be imprinted. This is just wild. This is so wild. Okay. And then the tape also in this one had instructions on the end of what to do. So basically at the end of the tape, it's like, hey, you just watched that. Sorry, you're infected with this virus now. However, if you don't want to die, here's what you need to do. So it's not as vague as the movies are, but the funny part is that the niece who had originally stayed at the cabin, watched the tape and died, they thought it was a joke, and so they actually taped over that part with a commercial, which is actually fucking hilarious. And I kind of wish that this was in the movie. I hope that at some point a horror movie does something like this, because I thought that that was just like such a fun twist on the, like, oh, okay, sorry for cursing you. Here's the instructions. Oh, just kidding, it's a commercial. That image just made me crack up. So nobody calls and says 7 days, but you do get a phone call, which we'll get to in a second. The guy, I forget his name, Asakawa, he's the reporter, right? So he finds her body. Finally, like, he goes through all the steps, he finds her body in the well, but he doesn't want to climb down into the well. He's like, you know, we've come this far, but like, it's kind of creepy down there. Dude, you are going to die. This evil little bitch is going to kill you. Just get into the well. Like, he is the most useless protagonist in the entire planet. Yeah, you just need to dig up the body of an infected psychic murderous girl that cursed you. No big deal, just do it. His friend is helping him. This is another freaking weird part of the story. So after he watches the tape, he's like, oh, I'm cursed now. Who can I don't want to show people this tape because I know that they'll die too. He's like, oh, I know. I have a friend from high school who raped girls, so I'll just show it to him. And so he shows it to his friend, and his friend is actually the one that does all of the solving. He is, I think, a professor. And yeah, he's not a detective, sorry. Our main character, Asakawa, the reporter, does nothing. I don't think he solves one fucking clue. He just relies on his friend. And then the weird part is, after his friend does everything, at the very end, he finds out that he never raped anyone and he's a virgin. It's just like, what is this writing? It's so weird, and I can't tell if the book is weird, if maybe it's the translation that's weird, because I've read other Japanese horror books and they're not as freaking strange as this one. So I don't know what's going on here, but there's just so many weird things that I'm like, why? And we're getting to another one in a second. Really quick, I just want to say that presumably the 7 days in my mind came from maybe the incubation period of the illness. It's never specified in the book. In the movie, at least the American version, the 7 days comes from that's how long Samara lived in the well before she died after her mom pushed her down. So this one, I'm assuming it's some sort of incubation period. And then I did Google, I think the incubation period of smallpox, and it was 7 to 14 days. But also that makes no fucking sense, because if it takes 7 to 14 days to be infected with it, how are you infected with it if you died right after whatever. Okay, anyways. Oh, here's another one. So after they go and find the doctor that raped and killed some Sadako, the doctor tells them, I don't even know where to go from here. Okay, hold on. Let me just find it and read it to you. Okay, so this is the doctor talking about killing her. He says, then I looked down again. Within her pubic mound, covered with hair, was a pair of perfectly developed testicles. And then his explanation for this was that it's testicular feminization syndrome. It's a type of male pseudo-hermaphroditism. And I apologize if these words are no longer the correct terminology. I really don't know. I'm just reading the text. And it says, externally, the person seems completely female, having breasts and a vagina, but usually not a uterus. Chromosomally, the person is XY, however, male. And for some reason, people with this condition are all beautiful. So that's what the doctor says. Now, I did not freaking understand why she had to have balls. Like, what did that have to do with absolutely anything? I do not know. The only thing that I found was this. It says that Sadako's power had become fused with another power. She'd wanted a child, but her body couldn't bear one, so she'd made a bargain with the devil for lots of children. The thinking, I think, this is what I'm gathering from it, children, reproduction of virus, and then the virus is like her children. So if that's the reason he gave her balls, like, why? There are other women who can't have children. And also, it's like, she's like 18. It has nothing to do with her life. And it's not even talked about in the book that she's like depressed that she can't have kids. It's the weirdest freaking twist at the end of a book I've ever, there's just no point. Like, there's just no reason. It's so weird. Okay. So now let's talk about the videotape. So first, let me show the American version of the video, because that's probably what you're most familiar with. Now I will show you the Japanese version and look out for the similarities between the two videos and the differences, because I think these are interesting too. Okay, so now we're up to the book. I'm not going to read you the whole explanation of the video because it's like 4 or 5 entire pages, but I just broke down like a quick list of what's talked about in the video of the book. So in the book, words say, watch until the end, you will be eaten by the lost. Then there's an intense outpouring of energy, but it felt good, so you don't want to turn the tape off. There's a volcano erupting. There's a character for the word mountain. Dice lands on a 1 and a 5. An old woman says, hold on, there's like a whole thing that she says. She gives a whole fucking soliloquy here. She says, how has your health been since then? If you spend all your time playing in the water, monsters are bound to get you. Understand? Be careful of strangers. Next year you're going to give birth to a child. You listen to Granny now because you're just a girl. There's no need to worry about local people. There's a newborn's face. Asakawa explains it as being able to hear the baby, feel the baby being born, like his hands were wet, and smell it. So I guess my description, what I'm trying to explain here is like it's more visceral than the video in the movies are. Then there's 100 faces looking at you hatefully, saying that you're a liar and a fraud, and you feel their hate is directed towards you. There's a TV on a stand with the word SADA. Something was stimulating all 5 of his senses. Then a man's face comes up and you feel hatred towards him. There's a scream, there's blood, darkness in the ring, in the center in a ring, a moon in the middle, a man's face in the moon. Then it says that those who view these images are fated to die at this exact hour 1 week from now. If you do not wish to die, you must follow these instructions exactly. And that's when a commercial cuts in. Okay. Then, really quick, I'm going to read you what happens with the phone call. This is Asakawa. So he says he answers the phone after the phone rings, after he watches the tape. There was no reply. Something was swirling around in a dark, cramped place. There was a deep rumble as if the earth were resounding, and the deep smell of earth. There was a chill at his ear, and the hairs on the nape of his neck stood up. The pressure on his chest increased, and the bugs from the bowels of the earth were crawling on his ankles and his spine clinging to him. Unspeakable thoughts and long rippled hatred almost reached him through the receiver. Chills ran up and down his backbone. Waves of nausea swept over him. The thing on the other end of the line hadn't said anything, but Asakawa knew what it wanted. It was a confirmation call. So a little bit different than the other ones, but that is the origin of the ring. A young girl that couldn't have children, so and then also got smallpox, and then also had testicles, and then also was mad that her mommy jumped into a volcano, and then her mom was psychic because she looked at a statue, and then so Sadako imprinted her evil plus with also, in addition to the smallpox that was inside her body, made this evil tape, and it conjugated in this well for years and years until all the tides were correct. And then it went up and it printed on this videotape, and there you have the story of the ring. Let me know how freaking absurd the origins of this story are. Let me know if you guys have read this book. Oh, and don't worry, because look at what I got. Oh, you thought there was just one Ring book? No, there are 6, and I plan to read all of them and include them in one strange ride of a video. So here is the second one. I will absolutely be reading all of those for you. Yeah, just telling you how freaking weird it is. Again, I don't know if it's the writing or the translation or like what is not comprehending in my brain. Maybe it's just me. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know if you guys have seen the American version, how you feel about it. If you guys have seen Ringu, the Japanese version, or if you guys have read the book by Koji Suzuki, which is one of the strangest horror books I've ever read. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, especially if you've made it this far. I know that was a lot of information, but I had to break it all down for you, and that's not even all of it. There's so much more. So I suggest you guys checking this out. If you want a weird read, pick this up, and I will see you soon with another horror video. And also, you did watch the Ring video, so you're probably not going to be here in 7 days. My apologies. Bye, guys.